Hello, my name is Felix, and I used to live in the jungle on the top of some hills overlooking a big city. And I love living in the jungle. Ever since I was a little cub, I loved hunting in the jungle because I was always hungry. My tummy was always growling, and when my tummy would be growling, I would growl too. I'd go, roar, roar, and then I would go hunting through the jungle looking for something to eat. And usually I would find something. Sometimes it was a little something, sometimes it was a bigger something, but I would find something to eat, and I would eat it, and I would feel happy for a little while until I got hungry again. I was always getting hungry. One day, I was up in the mountains, wandering around looking for something to eat, roaring to myself, roar, roar, and then I smelled something with my good nose. It smelled tasty, and when I went through the bushes and the trees and the vines to see what it was, I saw it. It was a dead deer. It wasn't a live deer that I had to chase. This was going to be easy. It was already dead. But there was something strange. It was sitting inside of something, a big thing that I'd never seen in the jungle before. But I didn't care. I wasn't scared because I'm Felix and I'm tough. And I went right into that thing, whatever it was, and I grabbed the deer and I bit it, and I started to take a bite out of it, and the deer was tied to a rope, and the rope was tied to something up above me, and as soon as I pulled on the deer, the rope pulled and the door came slamming down, clang, and I realized I was stuck, and I started to get angry, roar! And then I thought, I don't need to be angry, I've got a deer in here to eat, so I ate the deer, and it was good, and my tummy wasn't hungry anymore. And then I looked around and I thought, now what am I going to do? And just then, some humans showed up. I didn't care much for humans. I'd never really done much around humans. Once or twice I'd found a human. They were out in the mountains hunting around or something, and they might throw a spear at me or shoot an arrow, but I always escaped from them. But now I was stuck. I couldn't get away, and I just crouched down in this cage looking at them and roaring, roar, roar. But they didn't do anything to hurt me. They just got my cage, and they had a wagon with some horses nearby. They put my cage up on the wagon, and then they had the wagon and the horses pull me down the mountain, heading towards the big city. I didn't want to go to the big city. I didn't want to live there. That's not where the yummy animals are to eat. And I was very upset. And I started to think how hungry I was going to be in the city. And I was roaring. Roar, roar. And as we came into the city gates, all the people heard me roaring and they came running to see what was going on. People were leaning out their windows. People were peeking out their doors. Little kids were hiding behind their parents. What is that loud roaring sound? What is that loud roaring animal, do you think?
A lion.
It was a lion. I am a lion. My name is Felix the Lion. And I was roaring. And then I saw one person looking out the window who wasn't looking at me. As I was going down the street on the wagon in my cage, I saw one man up in a window, up on the side of the street. His window was open. He was looking up, but not at me. He was looking up at the sky. And he had his hands folded like this. And he was moving his mouth like he was saying things. And I thought, that's strange. I wonder what he's doing. But then I figured out right away what he was doing, because right next to him, I saw someone else. And this someone was very big. And he was very tall. And he was very bright. And I was surprised that nobody else was looking at him, because I thought, he's very interesting. Everyone should be watching him. He was glowing white and bright, and he had big wings coming out of his back. And I, of course, knew what he was. Do you know what he is?
Angel.
An angel he is. See, we animals, we see angels all the time. I think you humans don't see them very often, but we see them all the time. And we know that if there's an angel around, that means God is doing something important. We always pay attention to the angels. We animals know how to obey angels. And when I looked up and I was roaring, roar, roar, the angel looked down at me and he went, shh. Like I was being too noisy, like I was disturbing the man who was trying to pray in the window. And I closed my mouth and stayed quiet as we went by, until we were a little ways away, and then I started getting upset again, and I roared some more, roar, roar, and I roared all the way until we got to a big hole. And I saw the hole, and I thought, they're going to put me in that hole. I don't want to go in that hole. I'm not going to go in that hole. And so I roared, roar, roar, and getting upset. But they knew what to do. They took the cage, and they tipped it up over the hole, and then they opened the door, and I fell in. Roar, boom. And I landed in the bottom of the hole, and I was so upset that they had treated me, a lion, this way, that I tried to leap out of the hole. I leaped. Oh, it was too high. I leaped again. Oh, it's still too high. I was about to leap again when I heard someone say to me, "Don't bother." I looked around. There was another lion there. He was a big lion. He had a big mane, bigger than mine. He said, "Hello, my name is Richard. I'm a lion too, and I've been here for a few years. You can't get out of that hole, it's too high." I said, "I don't want to stay here. Roar! I want to get out." He said, "Actually, it's not that bad." I said, "It's not? This is a hole in the ground. It's just rocks and dirt. There's no yummy animals to eat. There's no nice streams to drink the water from. There's no nice shade to lay under in the hot of the day." He said, "No, it's better than that." I said, "How can it be better than that? I'm hungry already from all my roaring." He said, "I think you're going to see in just a moment. Do you smell that?" I said, "What?" "Oh yeah, I smell something yummy. It smells like a deer or something." And it was a deer. Because just then, I saw a couple men appear at the top of the hole, looking over the edge. And those men, they were the same soldiers that had captured me, and they were holding a deer on their shoulders. It was a dead deer. And next to them was another man. Now, he was different. He was kind of short, and he was kind of chubby, and he had a crown on his head. And he looked over and he said, "Oh, goody, there's another lion for my lion's den. Now I have 7 lions. I'm so happy. Oh, thank you for getting me this lion, man. Have you fed him yet?" And they said, "No, King, we have the deer right here." He said, "Oh, good. I love to watch the lions eat the animals. Throw the deer in." And they threw the deer in. And I was so hungry, I leaped, trying to grab the deer. But Richard knocked me out of the way. He said, "Boom! I'm bigger than you. I go first." And he grabbed the deer. Oh, and he started biting it. And I grabbed the deer's leg. And I started, and we ate that deer in 3 seconds flat. It was so tasty. And then Richard said, "You see, this is why this place is better than the jungle. You don't have to chase the deer down to catch them. You just lay around and wait, and they bring one to you." I said, "Do they bring one every day?" And Richard said, "Not every day. Sometimes we have to wait a few days. They want us to be hungry sometimes. You'll see why." I said, "Really? Why?" He said, "Oh, you'll see." And I did see, because a couple days later, my tummy was so hungry. It had no deer in it. I hadn't eaten since that last deer. I was so hungry. I was spending all my time roaring, "I'm hungry, bring me food." And then I heard footsteps coming, and I stopped roaring to listen. And I heard the soldiers walking. I could tell their footsteps. I heard the king walking. I could tell his footsteps. And there was another man. He wasn't walking. He was being dragged. And he was yelling, "No, no, I don't want to go. Don't throw me in there. No, I don't want to." And the king's voice said, "All right, mister. You've been causing trouble in my court. You stole some of my golden dishes. I'm going to have you thrown in the lion's den. Throw him in, man." And the soldiers grabbed that man. They threw him in. And you know, Richard and I jumped at the same time. And we grabbed him before he hit the ground. And then I stopped and I said, "This is a man. I've never eaten a human before. I wonder what they taste like." And Richard said, "They're yummy. You should try some." So we both jumped on the man and we started chewing. And we ate him up in 5 seconds flat. And he was tasty. I'd never had anything that delicious before. And I looked at Richard and said, "Now I see why you like living here. This is a nice place to live. We get to eat tasty things." And I knew I was going to enjoy my time in this den of lions. I spent the next couple months there, and usually we would eat deer, but sometimes we would get to eat a human, and it was so tasty. One day I heard men coming, and I thought, "Oh, maybe they're going to bring me something to eat." But it didn't sound like the footsteps of the soldiers, or of the king. It was some other men. It was 2 men, and I listened. And here's what they said. The first one said, "Oh, the lion bring me all the way out here by the lion's den." And the other man said, "Yeah, because this way nobody can hear us talking, see? When the lions are roaring, nobody can hear what we're going to say." And the first man said, "Oh, okay. Well, what are you going to tell me then?" He said, "Well, you know that we've been saying Daniel, he's causing trouble for us. He makes us look bad because he always makes the right choices and he's always being nice and he's so smart. And the king listens to him instead of us." That's when I realized these were some of the wise men who worked in the king's court. They were helpers to the king. And they were talking about another helper, a guy named Daniel. "Oh yeah, that's right, Daniel. He makes us look stupid." Well, yeah, he does, and I don't like it. So I've come up with a plan, and I want to tell you about it. It has to do with these lions. Oh, yeah? What's the plan? All right, so here's what I'm thinking. You know how the king loves it when everybody's telling him that he's such a great king? You know, that we tell him that every day. Oh, king, you're a great king. You're a smart king. Yeah, he likes that. He really likes that. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to tell him that he's not just a king, but that he's a god. But the king's not the god. I know that, dummy. But we're going to tell everybody that they have to treat him like he's a god. They're going to have to pray to him. And when they pray to him, he's going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm like a god. And then he's going to really like us for coming up with that plan. And the man said, oh, okay. So then we'll tell everybody to pray to the king and not to their gods. And then the king will be happy. Is that all? And the man said, no, because really it's a plan for us to get rid of Daniel. If we make that rule, do you think Daniel's going to pray to the king? I don't think so. Daniel always prays to his God. You know it. In the window down by the main street, he prays there 3 times a day to his God. Exactly. So then, when we make the rule, Daniel's going to go and pray to his God, and when he does, he'll be breaking the law, and then the king will throw him into the lion's den, because that's what will be the punishment for people who don't pray to their king. Oh, yeah, okay, I think that's oh, wait, there's a problem with that plan. Don't you think the king is going to be like, Daniel's my friend, I'm not going to throw him in the lion's den? No, you're not getting it. In our country, if there's a rule, the king has to obey the rule. He can't change it. So then he'll have to throw Daniel in. Oh yeah, that's a good plan. All right, I got it all written down right here on this piece of paper. Let's take it into the king and he'll sign it. Well, I, Felix the Lion, had been listening the whole time, and I thought, I really like this plan because it means more people for me to eat. I can't wait. And I didn't have to wait very long, because by that very evening, I started hearing things happening. The first thing I heard was the wise men running by. Oh, he was praying in the window. Let's go tell the king. Let's go tell the king. Oh, yeah, we saw him. I saw him praying in the window. And the next thing I heard was the king, and he was yelling, oh no, not Daniel, no, not my friend Daniel. You wise man tricked me. I don't want Daniel to be thrown in the lion's den. And the next thing I heard was the soldiers walking by as they went over to Daniel's house, and they were saying, yeah, that's too bad about Daniel. King shouldn't have fallen for that trick, but we got to throw him in. That's what the law says. And then the next thing I heard was the king and the soldiers and the wise men all coming up to the edge of the den. And my lips started drooling. My fangs started showing. My claws came out because I knew I was going to get a human to eat. I couldn't wait. Wait. I heard one more set of footsteps. Yes, that must be Daniel. Except he wasn't making the footsteps of somebody who was being dragged and who was fighting and kicking. He was just walking with everybody else. And then I heard the king's voice. And the king said, oh, Daniel, my friend, I'm so sorry I have to throw you into the lion's den. I shouldn't have signed that rule. The wise men tricked me. I don't want to throw you in, but I have to. And Daniel said, King, it's okay. I'm not afraid. Because God, He'll take care of me. I've always done what God says. When God said not to eat the food that King Nebuchadnezzar was serving, I didn't eat it, and God took care of me. When God told me, hey, you need to help King Nebuchadnezzar understand his dreams, I would tell the king what the dreams meant, and God would take care of me. When my friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were thrown into the fiery furnace for not bowing to the king, God took care of them. I don't have to worry because God can take care of me no matter where I am. And the king said, Daniel, you have lots of faith. I can tell that you really love your God, and I hope that He will protect you, Daniel. I hope so. Guys, throw him in. I can't watch. And the king ran off. He didn't even want to see his friend Daniel get thrown into the lion's den. The guards brought Daniel up to the edge, and I heard the wise men talking. Yeah, see, Daniel, you thought you were so smart. You thought you could be just the best guy around by just always being smart and kind to the king and always doing what your God says. Well, this will show you.
Yeah, this will show you, Daniel. You're going in the lion's den now. Bye-bye, Daniel. The lions are going to eat you up.
And then the soldiers picked Daniel up, and threw him down into the den. And I got ready to leap, and Richard got ready to leap. All the lions in the den got ready to leap. We were so hungry, and just as we were about to leap, somebody else showed up in the lion's den. Who do you think it was?
Angel.
It was the big, strong, tall, glowing, muscular angel. And he looked at us, and all he did was this with his finger.
I'm shaking
And I stopped. I have to obey the angel. Animals always obey the angels, but I was so hungry, and I thought, at least I can roar. I can roar to say how hungry I am. And I went to roar, and I got my biggest roar ready, and here's how it sounded. I couldn't open my mouth. I couldn't make a roar come out. I couldn't even make a little squeak. I was stuck. And I just looked as Daniel got up from the ground where he had fallen, and he dusted himself all off. And he straightened his robe out. And then he looked around, and he looked at us lions, and I know he could see us. We were just looking at him with our eyes. We couldn't take our eyes off of him. He looked around some more, and he looked right past the angel. You know, I don't think he even saw the angel in there. But we did, and we didn't do a thing as Daniel knelt down and folded his hands. And that's when I realized, I know this guy. That's the guy I saw kneeling in the window when I came into the city months ago. I'd seen him months ago when I was coming into the city because he was praying to his God then, and he was praying to him now. And he was praying, dear God, please protect me here in the lion's den. May your name be praised. Amen. And when he finished praying, well, do you know what he did? He lay right down and curled up and went to sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was so hungry. My stomach was growling, but that was the only thing that could growl. My mouth couldn't growl. My fangs couldn't shine. My claws couldn't come out. Oh, I just lay there all night looking at him. And every time I would think to myself, maybe I could just stick my tongue out and just lick him a little bit. And then I'd look over and the angel would be looking at me going, Oh, it was the worst night of my life. I waited all night. I could hardly sleep. Until finally, it started to be light. The sun started to come up a little bit. It was just light enough to see the hole, and I heard footsteps running up. It was the king's footsteps, and he ran to the edge of the den, and he looked down and he said, Oh, Daniel, are you okay? I couldn't hear the lions roaring all night. They must have been feasting on your bones and too busy to growl. Oh, Daniel, can your God have saved you? Oh, Daniel. And Daniel got up from where he had slept comfortable all night. He stretched. Oh, he stretched again. Oh, he dusted off his pants, his robe. He looked up at the opening of the den and he called out, Oh, King, live forever. The God who I serve has sent his angel to shut the lion's mouth, and they haven't hurt me, because I have obeyed him and always done what he said, and I haven't done anything wrong to you either, King. And the king said, Oh, Daniel, you're alive! You're alive, Daniel! Soldiers, get the ropes! And I heard many men running, and some of them were the soldiers. I could tell by their footsteps, but some of them were the wise men. They were running too, and they were sounding very surprised. What do you mean? What do you mean? You heard? The king said he's alive?
Yeah, the king said he's not dead. The lions eat him.
That's impossible. The lions eat anything. Let's go see for ourselves. And everybody came around the edges of the den, and they looked down at us. Us lions looked back up at them, and Daniel looked up at them. And the king said, Go ahead, throw the rope down, get him out. And the wise man said, Just a second, king. Yeah, you can't do that. Daniel broke the rules. Daniel prayed to someone else besides you, king, so then he has to be thrown in the den of lions. And the king said, Yes, that's true, but the rule only says he has to be thrown in the den of lions. It doesn't say that he has to live there the rest of his life. And if the lions don't eat him, then I can take him out now. So the law has been fulfilled. He got the consequence he was supposed to get, but God decided he wasn't gonna die. pull him out. And as they pulled Daniel out with a rope, I heard the wise men saying, "Well, that can't be right, King."
Yeah, that's not fair, King. Your lions must be broken or something. Maybe the lions have no teeth.
And the king said, "Oh, I think we'll find out in just a moment if the lions have teeth or not. Soldiers, grab them!" And the soldiers grabbed the wise men, and the wise men were going, "What? What's going on? Don't grab me!"
Oh, so what are you doing? I'm one of the king's wise men.
And as soon as Daniel was out, the king said, "Throw them in! Throw those evil men into the lion's den!" And Daniel said, "Oh, king, live forever. Thank you for pulling me back out. My God loves everyone, even these men who tried to plot against me. I forgive them." And the king said, "It doesn't matter if you forgive them. I don't forgive them for tricking me this way. I'm having them thrown in." And sure enough, the two evil wise men were thrown in, and me and Richard leaped. And our mouths could open again. Our claws could shine, our fangs could come out. And we devoured them before they even hit the bottom of the den. And the last thing that I heard before I fell asleep for a nice nap after eating two tasty wise men was the king making an announcement, telling everyone that the God of heaven was the most powerful God, that Daniel had followed what he said and obeyed him, and that God had protected Daniel, and that everyone should listen to what Daniel had to say about the God of heaven too. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much that the story of Daniel and the lion's den teaches us that you have so much power, even over things that, like lions, that we think are just going to devour, that you have power to control all of that, and that all you need us to do is just believe you and then obey you, because we believe you'll take care of all our problems. Help these boys and girls not to forget the story. Help them to always choose to do the right thing. We love you. Amen.